Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody can hear my voice and see the screen properly. Great. Today we are going to take a basic look at two things. We're going to take a look at grammar related to both poetry and prose. So the reason why we are doing this is in the past few years we have had questions in IELT specifically where they have asked you such questions, such direct questions which are based on prose. And even in CLAT, we have had this happening before. Even in CLAT 2020, the new format CLAT, in the English section, there were few questions which were based upon your understanding of particular nuances of both poetry and prose based grammar. So today I'm going to quickly run you through prose and poetry based grammar, some basic funda, and then take a look at a few examples. So we'll start with the poetry portion, right? And in poetry, as far as grammar is concerned, the only thing that we have is figures of speech, right? This is extremely important because it has been asked many, many times in IELT, but this has also been asked in the new version of CLAT. So now, some basics we will see of figures of speech. Now, you might already have done figures of speech when you are studying English poetry at school level. So, do you remember any of the basic figures of speech that you might have taught? You might have been taught. You can remember any basic figures of speech that you have been taught. Let me see. Do you remember any of them? Okay, Prishtha, correct. Shikha, I'm talking about poetry and figures of speech. I'm not talking about prose and parts of speech. Pragya, yes. Prishtha, Anushka, Shalja. Yep, that's what I'm talking about. Right. So you got quite a few of them you remember. So I'm going to take you through some basic figures of speech for poetry. Right, these are the ones which are commonly used in the examination questions, IELT, and even CLAT ones. So, figures of speech are nothing but specific types of poetic device. Meaning, sometimes in poetry, in the lines of poetry, you find certain things which are known as figures of speech, starting with a very, very basic one called alliteration. Right? So, alliteration is nothing but the same consonant sound is repeated, right? For example, Chandu ke chacha ne Chandu ki chachi ko chandi ki chamach se chutney chatai. So ch, right? Or in English, if you have she sells seashells by the seashore, so the sound of sh keeps getting repeated. So whenever a particular consonant sound keeps getting repeated, we call that as alliteration. This is one of the most common types of poetic devices and one of the easiest ones. So alliteration is simply repetition of consonant sounds. Next, you have something called antithesis. So when two opposite things, right? Anti itself means opposite, against. So when two opposite ideas or two opposite things are used together to show contrast or difference between them, then we call that as antithesis. For example, in A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, he starts the novel by saying it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, right? The same thing, he's saying it was the best and also it was the worst. There being best and being the worst are two exactly opposite concepts, and he uses it together for emphasis. So when two opposite ideas are placed together, then that is known as antithesis. So it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Then we have a concept called apostrophe. Now apostrophe is when a character is talking to somebody who is not there, or you're talking to somebody or something which cannot respond, right? If you're talking to somebody who is not present, or you're talking to an inanimate object, or you're talking to an idea, you're talking to a concept, right? Then such a figure of speech is called an apostrophe. For example, in Romeo and Juliet, when William Shakespeare writes, "Oh Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou?" Romeo is not present there, right? But he is addressing. So when he's talking, he's calling Romeo who is not present there. So such a figure of speech is known as an apostrophe. Then we have something called circumlocution. Circum as in circle is round, गोल गोल बात करना. तो when you don't directly say something but you describe it in a long manner, to the point बात नहीं कर रहे, घुमा फिरा के अगर बात कर रहे हैं, then that is called circumlocution. So for example, the most common Harry Potter reference, in that the main villain Lord Voldemort, nobody calls his name, you're not supposed to say his name, so you say he who must not be named. वोल्डेमॉर्ट इतना छोटा सा नाम है, बट उसको वो नाम से कोई नहीं बुलाता, ही हु मस्ट नॉट बी नेम्ड. सो सीधी बात ना करके घुमा फिरा के अगर बात करते हैं, then that is called circumlocution. Circum literally means around, loc means to speak. तो घुमा घुमा के बात करना है circumlocution. Then an epigram is simply a clever statement or a memorable statement. तो कोई फेमस डायलॉग अगर है, या एकदम कोई स्मार्ट सा डायलॉग है, कोई पेपी सा डायलॉग है, राइट, जैसे स्पीच में है, पोएट्री में है, या कोई चीज जो बहुत याद रह जाती है, सच अ थिंग इज कॉल्ड एन एपिग्राम, राइट. So an epigram is simply a clever and memorable statement. So any quote by a person, तुम मुझे खून दो मैं तुम्हें आजादी दूंगा, राइट, और स्वराज्य मेरा जन्म सिद्ध अधिकार है, स्वराज्य is my birthright and I shall have it. So any such memorable quote is in poetic form called an epigram. Then when we don't want to talk about something which is difficult and we talk about it in a easier way or in a way which is not harsh, then we call that euphemism. For example, हम कभी ये नहीं कहते कि वो मर गया, नहीं, वो कहते वो गुजर गए, वो स्वर्ग सिधार गए, right, he passed away. We don't say he died, we say he passed away. So when a difficult topic is talked about using simple words, then that is known as a euphemism. Then when your opposite of that is a hyperbole, when जानबूझ के कोई चीज को बढ़ा चढ़ा के कहते हो, राइट, ताकि उसमें एक्साइटमेंट ऐड हो, ताकि उसमें अर्जेंसी ऐड हो. सो व्हेन यू एग्जैजरेट समथिंग, देन यू कॉल इट हाइपरबली. जैसे मम्मियां आर वेरी फेमस फॉर हाइपरबली. मम्मी क्या बोलेगी, तेरे को लाख बार समझाया है कि ये मत कर, तो आप गिनने बैठोगे, माँ लाइफ में तूने मेरे साथ लाख शब्द इस्तेमाल नहीं किए होंगे, आपने कैसे मुझे लाख बार समझा दिया, नहीं. What she means to say is I've explained it to you many times. या अगर आप पे कोई मुश्किल आती है, तो अगर मेरे सर पे पहाड़ टूट पड़ा, भाई अगर तेरे सर पे लिटरली पहाड़ टूट पड़ा तो जिंदा नहीं रहेगा, बट राइट वी एग्जैजरेट. सो अगर मैंने खाना नहीं खाया तो मैं भूख से मर जाऊंगा, भाई भूख से कोई मरता नहीं है, एटलीस्ट इतनी आसानी से तो कोई मरेगा नहीं, राइट. सो सच अ स्टेटमेंट इज कॉल्ड अ हाइपरबली. Then irony is something which is it subverts the reader's expectations. What it basically means is you are expecting something and something totally different, unexpected happens. Then that's an ironical situation. For example, कोई बंदा बोलता है for example, let us say Shahrukh Khan becomes the brand ambassador for no smoking campaign, right? Now it is known that Shahrukh Khan is one of the, he's a very chain smoker. So if Shahrukh Khan suddenly is selected to be the brand ambassador for a no smoking campaign, then that is called ironical, right? Or for example, you have a character जो हमेशा डिजीज से डरता रहता है और एंड में सर्दी की वजह से मर जाता है, so that is ironical, right? So something which is contrary to expectations, that you expect something and totally different thing happens, right? Something like that is called ironical. Then we have something called litotes. A litotes is basically a double negative, right? दो बार नेगेटिव को यूज करके एक पॉजिटिव चीज के बारे में बात करते हैं, दैट इज लिटोट्स. सो इंस्टेड ऑफ सेइंग यू आर राइट, इफ आई से यू आर नॉट रॉन्ग, नॉट रॉन्ग, नॉट भी नेगेटिव है, रॉन्ग भी नेगेटिव है, लेकिन इंस्टेड ऑफ सेइंग यू आर राइट, इफ आई से यू आर नॉट रॉन्ग, then the usage of that double negative is known as litotes. Then metaphor, it's a direct comparison of dissimilar things, right? हम एक चीज को दूसरे चीज के साथ डायरेक्टली कंपेयर कर रहे हैं, हम ये नहीं कहते उसके जैसा है, हम कहते हैं ये वो है, राइट. हम ये नहीं कहते चांद जैसा रोशन चेहरा, हम कहते तू चांद है, right? Then that is a metaphor. Instead of saying you are like an onion, if I say you are an onion, then I'm directly making you as the other thing. Then that is called a metaphor, a direct comparison. Metonymy is when you use a word or object instead of another thing, right? एक चीज की जगह पे दूसरी चीज को आप इस्तेमाल करते हैं for description, then that is called metonymy, right? So instead of saying, I thought his movies were better when they were in so Hollywood, instead of saying dramatic, right? हम किसी चीज को dramatic कहें, dramatic की जगह हम कहेंगे कि वो एकदम बॉलीवुड टाइप है. इंस्टेड ऑफ सेइंग वो बहुत नखरा करती है, वो बहुत ड्रामेटिक है, हम ये कहते हैं वो बहुत बॉलीवुड है. बॉलीवुड डज नॉट मीन ड्रामेटिक, बट हियर इन द स्टेटमेंट व्हेन यू यूज इट यू अंडरस्टैंड इट, right? So when you use one word instead of another, then that is known as metonymy. Onomatopoeia is basically sound, right? For example, मैं बादल धड़ाम धुड़ूम के साथ कड़का, so that धड़ाम धुड़ूम, that is onomatopoeia, right? Ting tong करके बेल बजा, so that ting tong, any sound which you make to literally show something is onomatopoeia. Oxymoron is when you use two opposite or contradicting words to create a new meaning. For example, the word awful means very bad. The word good is obviously the opposite of bad. But if you say that strawberry cake was awfully good, right? Awful is bad, good means good, but awfully good means very good. तो गुड़ के ऑपोजिट को उसके साथ जब यूज करते हो तो गुड़ का बेटर हो जाता है. So when you use two opposite or two contradictory words and a totally new meaning is created, then that is called an oxymoron. So saying that something is awfully good, are you saying it is bad or good? You actually mean it is very good. So you are using the word for bad to show something is very good. Then we have paradox, which is a statement which contradicts itself. खुद को ही अगर कोई चीज गलत साबित कर देता है तो दैट इज अ पैराडॉक्स, जो यूजुअली ह्यूमर के लिए, थीम के लिए होता है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, व्हेन जॉर्ज ऑरवेल सेड ऑल एनिमल्स आर इक्वल बट सम एनिमल्स आर मोर इक्वल देन अदर्स. सो हाउ कैन समथिंग बी मोर इक्वल? इक्वल का मतलब ही है कि न कम है न ज्यादा है. But when he says all animals are equal, some animals are more equal than others, what basically he's trying to say is that nobody is equal, that inequality exists. But he is saying that everything is not equal by saying something is more equal than others. Technically speaking, nothing can be more equal than another thing. So this is the usage of paradox for displaying an emphasis. Then easy one, personification. When a non-human thing is given a human quality, किसी non-human चीज को अगर कोई human quality दे देते हो, so उस चीज को personify कर रहे हो, you are creating it as if it is a human being. तो if I say तू इतना मोटा है कि तू जब चेयर पे बैठता है तो वो चेयर दर्द से रोता है. Now obviously a chair cannot cry, but we are giving the chair a human quality of crying. So if I say तू इतना मोटा है कि जब तू चेयर पे बैठता है तो चेयर भी दर्द के मारे रोता है. So what I'm using is called personification. Then pun. Pun is wordplay, is a play on words. एक ही जैसे शब्दों का प्रयोग, सुनने में जो एक जैसे हो बट अर्थ अलग हो, वैसे शब्दों का प्रयोग करके इट्स अ प्ले ऑन वर्ड्स. So a classic example is Alice in Wonderland, in which the mouse says, "Mine is a long and sad tail." So Alice says it is a long tail, but why is it sad? The tail का मतलब दो होता है. Tail also means story. Tail also means पूंछ. तो basically the mouse is saying कि मेरी कहानी लंबी और दुखद है. But Alice से हाँ तेरी पूंछ तो लंबी है but दुखद क्यों है? So the word tail, it has been used in two different senses when you speak it. If you say I have a sad tail, तो आपका कहने का मतलब है मेरी कहानी दर्दनाक है, बट सामने वाला TAIL सुनता है तो कहते हैं पूंछ दर्दनाक कैसे हो सकता है. सो इट्स प्लेइंग विद वर्ड्स. ओके. अब metaphor was a direct comparison. Simile is when you are comparing but you are using words like or as, right? It was the first real day of summer and by the time she came back into, she was red as a tomato. अगर मैं कहूं she was a tomato तो वो मेटाफर हो गया. She was red like a tomato or she was as red as a tomato, that becomes simile, right? उसकी हंसी गुलाब जैसी है, दैट इज सिमिली. उसकी हंसी गुलाब है, दैट इज मेटाफर. देन सिनेक्डिकी, जब छोटी चीज को बताने के लिए बड़ी चीज का इस्तेमाल करते हैं या बड़ी चीज को बताने के लिए छोटी चीज का अगर इस्तेमाल करें. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, न्यू इंग्लैंड वन द गेम बाय टचडाउन और इंडिया वन द मैच. भाई मैच इंडिया नहीं खेल रहा था, इंडियन क्रिकेट टीम खेल रही थी. बट इंस्टेड ऑफ सेइंग द मैच वाज वन बाय द इंडियन क्रिकेट टीम, we can also say India won the match. So when they are using the entire country to show just a team or even vice versa, then that is called synecdoche. And understatement is the opposite of hyperbole. हाइपरबली में आप छोटी चीज को बढ़ा चढ़ा के बताते हो. अंडरस्टेटमेंट में कोई बड़ी चीज है लेकिन उसको आप छोटा करके बताते हो. लाइक इफ somebody says I have to have this operation, बहुत सीरियस नहीं है, सिर्फ छोटा सा ब्रेन है. हाँ, मुझे थोड़ी एक छोटी सी बीमारी है, मैं मुझे ज्यादा कुछ नहीं, बस कैंसर है. सो इफ आई से समथिंग लाइक दैट, कैंसर इज ऑब्वियसली ह्यूज, बट इफ आई से हाँ मुझे बस छोटी मोटी सी बीमारी है, बस कैंसर है, so what I'm doing is I'm trying to make something serious into something small. That is called an understatement. It is the opposite of hyperbole, right? And transferred epithet is किसी एक चीज को डिस्क्राइब करने के लिए कोई एडजेक्टिव जो है वो किसी दूसरे नाउन के साथ चिपका देते हो, राइट? एडजेक्टिव इज अ वर्ड विच इज यूज्ड टू डिस्क्राइब अ नाउन. तो एडजेक्टिव लगना किसी और के साथ चाहिए, लेकिन आप किसी और के साथ चिपका देते हो, तो यू आर ट्रांसफरिंग एपिथेट. एपिथेट मीन्स टाइटल. सो एक का टाइटल दूसरे को लगा देते हो, तो दैट इज कॉल्ड अ ट्रांसफर्ड एपिथेट. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इफ आई से द टीचर पॉइंटेड एन एंग्री फिंगर एट द क्लास, right? Now, finger cannot be angry. The angry is actually the teacher. Sentence technically is the angry teacher pointed a finger at the class. But we can also say the teacher pointed an angry finger at the class. So the angry title, it gets shifted from the teacher to the finger. So when you are transferring the title from one noun to another in the sentence, what you are doing is known as transferred epithet. So these were some of the basic and most commonly asked figures of speech. Did you understand the basics of these? You must have studied most of these at school level. So I hope this was a quick reminder of that. Got it. Okay. So now that we have seen some basic types of figures of speech, and remember most of these are the ones which would be asked in either IELTS or CLAT. CLAT में भी I think onomatopoeia एक बार पूछा था, metaphor एक बार पूछा था, simile एक बार पूछा था, एंड यही चीजें काफी बार इवन आईलेट के अंदर आया है. सो यू शुड जस्ट नो व्हाट दे आर. दे विल गिव यू एन एग्जांपल और पूछेंगे इसमें कौन सा फिगर ऑफ स्पीच है. दैट्स इट. ओके, नाउ लेट्स टेक अ बेसिक लुक एट ग्रामर ऑफ टेक्स्ट, ऑफ पैराग्राफ्स, ऑफ प्रोज एज वेल. Just like you have multiple figures of speech in poetry, we have parts of speech in grammar. So I'm going to quickly run you through the parts of speech so that when कोई question आएगा कि identify the adjective in the sentence or identify the noun in the sentence, you should be able to know कि noun किसको बोलते हैं, adjective किसको बोलते हैं. And then we will also take a look at some of the most common type of errors which can come so that we can apply them to the questions. So technically there are 8 parts of speech, right? In order, we will talk about nouns, pronouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, conjunctions, prepositions, and interjections. Technically, the 8 parts of speech include nouns, pronouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, conjunctions, prepositions, and interjections. So quickly, let's take a look at what exactly these are and what are the various types and rules associated with each of them. Starting with the first one, nouns are naming words. Naming words are called nouns. So anything which is used to call something. Boy, girl, India, Delhi, red, blue, everything is a noun. तो उसमें होते हैं प्रॉपर नाउन्स, स्पेसिफिक चीजों के नाम, जैसे कि नेम ऑफ अ कंट्री, नेम ऑफ अ पर्सन, नेम ऑफ अ प्लेस, राइट? राम, श्याम, बाबर, अकबर, हुमायूं, शिवाजी, ताजमहल, कुतुब मीनार, सोमनाथ, द्वारका. These are all names of specific things. And common nouns include simple things like boy, girl, pen, pencil, eraser, car, rubber, plastic. देन एब्स्ट्रैक्ट नाउन्स, जो चीज को हम सिर्फ महसूस कर सकते हैं, छू नहीं सकते. सो इमोशंस, लव, हेट, sorrow, happiness, depression, these are called abstract nouns. And anything which can be touched, which can is tangible, is called a concrete or material noun. So wood, iron, steel, water, all these are concrete nouns. And a single word for a group of things is known as a collective noun. So when we say a group of boys, a swarm of bees, a pride of lion, a murder of crows, a battalion of sheep, an army of soldiers, flock of sheep. So all these words, flock, herd, bouquet, pride, battalion, swarm, school, shoal, जो एक समूह के लिए सिंगल वर्ड है, all these are known as collective nouns. Now, the second part of speech is a pronoun. So, noun की जगह पे जो वर्ड यूज किया जा सकता है, a word which can replace a noun is called a pronoun. So, we can classify them according to person. That is first person, second person, third person. तो first person में I, me, we, second person में you, third person में he, she, it. तो first, second, third person के हिसाब से you can split it. सिंगुलर प्लूरल के हिसाब से सिंगुलर इज आई, प्लूरल इज वी. सेकंड पर्सन में सिंगुलर प्लूरल दोनों ही यू आता है. थर्ड पर्सन में ही, शी, इट, सिंगुलर दे, देम इज ऑल प्लूरल. Then there are personal pronouns. So I, me, we, he, she, it, they. फिर this, that, these, those, ये चार को demonstrative pronoun कहा जाता है. So this, that, these, those are also pronouns, but they are called demonstrative pronouns. फिर who, whom, which, what, इसको interrogative pronoun कहा जाता है. फिर who, whom, whose, which, that को relative pronoun भी कहा जा सकता है. Then anyone, someone, none, everything, many, few are called indefinite pronouns. And anything with self, so myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourself, themselves, all those are called reflexive and intensive pronouns. And each other and one another, जो साथ में आते हैं, each के साथ हमेशा other लगेगा, one के साथ हमेशा another लगेगा. So these are called reciprocal pronouns. So pronouns, ये सारी चीजों को pronouns की कैटेगरी में डालते हैं. Then the third and the most important part of speech, as far as English grammar is concerned, in fact, as far as grammar in any language is concerned, is what we call as verbs. So doing words are called verbs. Anything which shows action. तो verbs में भी categories होती हैं, 3 tenses होते हैं, present, past, future, और हर tense के अंदर 4 varieties होती हैं, right? Simple, continuous, perfect and perfect continuous. अब वर्ब के यूसेज का कुछ बेसिक रूल होता है. बेसिक फंडा हमेशा याद रखो कि अगर सिचुएशन में आप कोई भी टेंस यूज कर सकते हो तो पहला प्रेफरेंस हमेशा सिंपल को जाएगा, राइट? सिंपल, कंटिन्यूअस, परफेक्ट या परफेक्ट कंटिन्यूअस में से अगर कोई भी यूज करना अलाउड है तो फर्स्ट चॉइस हमेशा सिंपल टेंस को दिया जाएगा. In English, we say that every sentence which is complete, grammatically speaking, must contain a verb. एक सेंटेंस के अंदर अगर वर्ब नहीं है तो ग्रामेटिकली वो कंप्लीट नहीं हो सकता. बिना वर्ब के कंप्लीट सेंटेंस नहीं बन सकता. नाउ नाउन्स, प्रोनाउंस एंड वर्ब्स, 3 मेन के बाद उनको डिस्क्राइब, उनकी क्वालिटी को डिस्क्राइब करते हुए जो वर्ड्स हैं, we call them as adjectives and adverbs. So adjectives basically add some sort of description to a noun or a pronoun. Adverb adds some sort of a description to the verb. So uske andar we have positives, comparatives and superlatives. So एक adjective ले लो. For example, I am a boy. What type of a boy? तो simple मुझे describe करना होता है कि I am a tall boy. So tall तो हो गया positive. अब किसी और के साथ अगर कंपैरिजन करने हैं तो आई वुड से आई एम टॉलर दैन हिम. सो टॉलर हो गया मेरा कंपैरेटिव. एंड अगर सबसे ज्यादा मैं हूं then I am the tallest boy. So tall, taller, tallest. Positive degree, comparative degree and superlative degree. अब कंपैरेटिव एंड सुपरलेटिव में याद रखो, यूजुअली कंपैरेटिव डिग्री में ई आर लग जाएगा, जैसे बिग बिगर, स्मॉल स्मॉलर, टॉल टॉलर, लाउड लाउडर, एंड सुपरलेटिव में ई एस टी लग जाएगा. तो टॉल टॉलर, टॉलेस्ट, बिग बिगर, बिगेस्ट, लाउड लाउडर, लाउडेस्ट, स्मॉल स्मॉलर, स्मॉलेस्ट. बट कुछ ऐसे वर्ड्स हैं जिसके अंदर ई आर या ई एस टी नहीं लगेगा. वी विल यूज मोर और मोस्ट. Right? So she is a beautiful girl. We do not say beautifuler or beautifulest. We say she is more beautiful than her sister. She is the most beautiful girl in the class. Right? तो डिपेंडिंग ऑन यूसेज या तो ई आर ई एस लगेगा या तो मोर मोस्ट लगेगा. एंड देन कुछ ऐसे एकदम वर्ड्स हैं जिसमें वो आउट ऑफ सिलेबस टाइप्स के जो रेगुलर रूल्स फॉलो नहीं करते, जैसे गुड, बेटर, बेस्ट, बैड, वर्स, वर्स्ट. राइट? गुड एंड बैड के अंदर नॉर्मली हम ई आर ई एस टी या मोर मोस्ट का फंडा फॉलो नहीं करते. वी हैव कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट वर्ड्स फॉर कंपैरेटिव एंड सुपरलेटिव. बट इन ऑल अदर केसेस ई आर ई एस या मोर मोस्ट लगेगा. याद रखो, अगर मोर लगता है तो अर नहीं लगेगा, मोस्ट लगता है तो एस्ट नहीं लगेगा. वी कैनॉट से ही इज मोर टॉलर देन, नहीं, मोर एंड टॉलर एक साथ कभी नहीं आएगा. we say he is taller than, या तो more tall, but क्योंकि taller allowed है तो we simply say he is taller than. We cannot say he is more taller than. Now conjunctions. अब सेंटेंस के अंदर आइडेंटिफाई द कंजंक्शन और फिल इन द कंजंक्शन वाले क्वेश्चंस कॉमन है. सो ये सारे वर्ड्स जैसे कि बट, और, एज, इफ, एज सुन एज, येट, जो बीच में सेंटेंसेस को कनेक्ट करते हैं, राइट, इन सबको कंजंक्शंस कहते हैं. नाउ कंजंक्शंस के बाद प्रेपोजिशंस. प्रेपोजिशन के कैटेगरीज होते हैं. जो तो चीज आपको टाइम बताता है, आफ्टर, अराउंड, एट, बिफोर, बिटवीन, ड्यूरिंग, फ्रॉम, ऑन, ये सारे टाइम रिलेटेड हैं तो दे आर कॉल्ड प्रेपोजिशंस ऑफ टाइम. फिर जो लोकेशन या प्लेस बताता है, अबाउ, अक्रॉस, अगेंस्ट, अलोंग, अमोंग, थ्रू, अंडर, ओवर, ये सारे प्रेपोजिशंस ऑफ प्लेस हो गए. फिर जो मूवमेंट बताते हैं, जैसे एट, फॉर, ऑन, टू, इन, इनटू, ऑन टू, बिटवीन. एंड देन जो मैनर, कैसी कोई चीज हो रही है वो बताता है, बाय, ऑन, इन, लाइक, विथ. एंड फिर रैंडम प्रेपोजिशंस. राइट? सो दीज आर डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ प्रेपोजिशंस. नॉर्मली टाइम एंड प्लेस का कोई कनेक्शन होता है. फाइनली इंटरजेक्शन. सो एनी इमोशन, याहू, yippee, अलास, साई, ये सारे जो इमोशन वाले वर्ड्स हैं जिसके एंड में यूजुअली इंट्रोगेशन मार्क, एक्सक्लेमेशन मार्क लगता है, दीज आर नोन एज इंटरजेक्शंस. ओके. अब ये तो हो गए 8 पार्ट्स ऑफ स्पीच. एक जो है जिसको टेक्निकली इन 8 पार्ट्स ऑफ स्पीच में नहीं माना जाता, but it is also an important thing to remember, is the presence of articles. We have got 3 articles: a, an, and the. A is a normal article which is general in nature. So we say a boy, a girl, and an is also a general article, but the rule is the sound of the first syllable. Consonant and vowels. Vowels are A, E, I, O, U. कॉन्सोनेंट्स आर जो वॉवल नहीं होते, बी, सी, डी, एफ, जी, एच, जे, के, एल, एम, एन, पी, क्यू, आर, एस, टी, वी, डब्ल्यू, एक्स, वाई एंड जेड. तो वॉवल का जो साउंड होता है, अ, आ, ई, any word starting with the sound of a vowel will contain an before it. And if it starts with the sound of a consonant, if it starts with the sound of a consonant, then we have a. So जैसे कि a boy, a girl, but an aeroplane, a university, an R, right? HOUR hover नहीं बोलते, we pronounce it as R. तो a के sound से होता है, so an R, an MBA, an NRI. राइट? तो साउंड के हिसाब से ए या एन लगता है. एंड द इज अ स्पेसिफिक प्रोनाउन. So when I say a boy, it could be any boy. But when I want to particularly talk about someone, then I say the boy. Right? So the is a very specific article. Now, let's understand some of the basic errors which are there, which happen in language and which are often asked in the exam. So you can just try to identify whether any of these errors is present. Starting with modifiers. So a modifier is basically an adjective or an adverb जो किसी चीज को modify करता है. So adjectives क्या होते हैं? They describe a noun or a pronoun. So they tell you the quality. Adverb क्या होता है? It tells you the quality of the verb. So adjectives and adverbs are called modifiers. Now modifiers related बहुत सारे errors होते हैं. राइट. सो बेसिक फंडा ये है कि जो मॉडिफायर है वो किसके साथ सेंटेंस में लगना चाहिए और किसके साथ गलती से लगा दिया है, वो अगर आइडेंटिफाई कर लो देन यू हैव अंडरस्टूड द मॉडिफायर. सो लेट्स टेक एन एग्जांपल. इफ आई से Ashish has nearly annoyed every professor he has had versus Ashish has annoyed nearly every professor he has had. शब्द वही हैं, the words are almost the same, they have just been jumbled, but the meaning of both the sentences is very different from each other. So when I put nearly before annoyed, तो उसका मतलब हो गया कि ऑलमोस्ट अनॉय कर दिया है लेकिन पूरी तरह अनॉय नहीं किया है, अनॉय करते करते रह गया. तो हर प्रोफेसर को उसने पूरी तरह अनॉय नहीं किया है, उसने सारे प्रोफेसरों को ऑलमोस्ट अनॉय कर दिया है. जबकि सेकंड में जो नियरली है वो एवरी प्रोफेसर के साथ लगा हुआ है, तो आशीष ने लगभग सारे प्रोफेसरों को अनॉय कर दिया है. राइट. सो फर्स्ट में लगभग अनॉय किया है, सेकंड में लगभग सारे प्रोफेसरों को अनॉय किया है. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड सिमेंटिकली व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन द टू? मीनिंग वाइज दोनों में डिफरेंस क्या है, समझ में आया? ग्रामेटिकली बोथ आर करेक्ट बट द मीनिंग इज टोटली डिफरेंट इन बोथ द केसेस. राइट. नाउ if I say we almost ate all of the Diwali sweets versus we ate almost all of the Diwali sweets. Did you understand the difference between the meaning conveyed by both the sentences? In the first statement, we almost ate all of the Diwali sweets का मतलब क्या है कि हमने हमने ऑलमोस्ट खा ही लिया था, यानी खाने वाले थे लेकिन खाते खाते रह गए, यानी कि हमने खाया नहीं है. इन द फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट आई हैव नॉट एक्चुअली ईटन इट, राइट, खाते कहा खाते रह गया. जबकि इन द सेकंड वन इट सेज वी एट ऑलमोस्ट ऑल ऑफ द दिवाली स्वीट्स का मतलब क्या है, हमने लगभग सारे मिठाइयों को खा लिया. तो पहले केस में तो मिठाई खाते खाते रह गए, यानी कि मिठाइयों को खाया ही नहीं, जबकि दूसरे इसमें हार्डली कोई मिठाई बची है, ऑलमोस्ट सबको चट कर गए. So understood the difference between the sentences when written in these two ways? Okay. Now, by accident, he poked the little girl with his finger in the eye. Technically, ये गलत है, right? So, how do I correct this particular statement? Can you tell me? Can you tell me how the sentence can be improved grammatically? He accidentally poked the little girl with his finger. भाई तुमने तो सेंटेंस में से बहुत कुछ गायब कर दिया है. आई कहाँ गया शजर सेंटेंस में? You cannot miss out any part of the sentence. Okay. So let's see first of all error क्या है. When you say by accident he poked the little girl with his finger in the eye, with his finger in the eye का इंटरप्रिटेशन में गड़बड़ी है. ऑथर क्या ये कहना चाहता है कि छोटी लड़की को लड़की की आंख में उसने अपने फिंगर से पोक किया और डज इट मीन कि उसने अपनी उंगली को आंख में रखा और लड़की को पोक किया विथ हिज फिंगर इन दी आई. तो किसके आई की बात कर रही है? डिड ही पोक द गर्ल इन द गर्ल्स आई और डिड ही कीप हिज फिंगर इन हिज ओन आई एंड देन पोक्ड द गर्ल? नाउ ऑब्वियसली वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द लिटिल गर्ल की आंख, him poking the little girl's eye with his finger. So, the best way is by accident, he poked the little girl in the eye with his finger. तो इस फॉर्मेट में we do not have any confusion कि किसकी फिंगर है किसकी आंख है. You get that? In the first statement, it is possible to misinterpret whose eye it is. So, a way to resolve this confusion is to put the eye along with the girl. The eye belongs to the girl. So, by accident, he poked the little girl in the eye with his finger. So, no confusion, kiski aankh, kiska finger. Got this? Pragya statement. He poked the little girl in the eye with his finger. See, you just shifted the by accident part to the end. In sentence correction, the least amount of change is recommended, right? With a minimal amount of change, if I can correct the sentence, then that would be considered the best option. Okay. Now, Manan, if you say by accident he poked the little girl with his finger in her eye, so he kept his finger in her eye and then he poked it. के फिंगर से पोक किया, कहना क्या चाहते हो? इफ यू जस्ट पुट हर आई विद हिज फिंगर इन हर आई, सो उसने अपने आंख को उसके अपने उंगली को आराम से उसकी आंख पर रखा और फिर पोक किया. ऐसा भी तो कुछ मिस इंटरप्रिटेशन हो सकता है. सो द लिटिल ही पोक द लिटिल गर्ल इन द आई विथ हिज फिंगर reduces that confusion. Got it? Correct. Okay. Now, tell me. Anushka is the sentence, okay, which is by accident, little girl's eye was. You are changing the voice. He poked her, was poked by. आपने एक्टिव पैसिव चेंज कर दिया है. रिमेंबर मिनिमल चेंजेस होने चाहिए. यू कैनॉट चेंज द टेंसेस, यू कैनॉट चेंज द वॉइस. मिनिमल चेंज के साथ आपको करना है. डू यू गेट दैट? चलो. I heard that my roommate intended to throw a surprise party for me while I was outside her bedroom window. अब इसमें पंगा क्या है? मैंने ये सुना कि जब मैं खिड़की के बाहर, मैं बेडरूम की खिड़की के बाहर रहूंगी तब मुझे पार्टी मिलेगा. ऐसा सेंस बनता है इसका. मैं जब उसके खिड़की के बाहर होंगी तब वो मुझे पार्टी देगी. दैट इज वियर्ड, राइट? The intention is that you were outside the window and you overheard the roommate saying that she is going to throw you a surprise party. So, with minimal change in the structure, how do I say that? Manishka, yes. तो यहाँ पे टाइमिंग क्या है? पार्टी खिड़की के बाहर रहते हुए नहीं होने वाली. जब आप खिड़की के बाहर थे तब आपने सुना कि वो पार्टी देने वाली है. So change that, right? So while I was outside her bedroom window, I heard that my roommate intended to throw a surprise party for me. That would be the best way to put it. Most of you got this one. वागीशा, आपने तो ये प्लानिंग कहां से बीच में आया? यू कांट चेंज द वर्ड्स. वर्ड्स मोर और लेस वैसे ही होने चाहिए. इंटेंडेड टू का प्लानिंग नहीं कर सकते आप. गॉट दैट? Okay, next one. After the wedding, Phyllis told us at his stag party that he would start behaving like a responsible adult. शादी होने के बाद स्टैग पार्टी पे फिलिस ने कहा कि वो रेस्पॉन्सिबल एडल्ट की तरह बिहेव करना चालू करेगा. That's definitely not what the person intends to convey. शादी के स्टैग सबसे पहले तो स्टैग पार्टी होती क्या है? स्टैग पार्टी इज अ बैचलर्स पार्टी. शादी से पहले जो पार्टी करते हैं उसको बैचलर्स पार्टी या स्टैग पार्टी कहते हैं. तो ऐसा तो हो नहीं सकता कि शादी होने के बाद बैचलर्स पार्टी रही हो. सो व्हाट एग्जैक्टली डज द ऑथर ट्राई वांट टू से इन दिस? ये कहना चाहता है कि शादी होने के बाद स्टैग पार्टी हुई और स्टैग पार्टी में फिलिस ने कहा कि फिर स्टैग पार्टी में फिलिस ने कहा कि शादी के बाद मैं रिस्पॉन्सिबल बनूंगा. राइट. द इंटेंशन ऑफ द ऑथर इज टू कन्वे दैट Phyllis, that there was a stag party, and during the party, Phyllis said that I will behave responsibly after the wedding. So obviously, Phyllis told us at his stag party that he would start behaving like a responsible adult after the wedding. Logically, that makes sense. All I'm doing is shifting after the wedding, which is a time thing. वो टाइमिंग का फ्रेज मैं शिफ्ट कर रहा हूं एंड द स्टेटमेंट मेक्स मोर सेंस. आई होप एवरीबॉडी गॉट दिस. शैलजा स्टैक पार्टी क्यों की आपके सेंटेंस में? तो स्टैक पार्टी गायब हो गया. गेटिंग दैट? यू कैन नॉट मिस आउट एनी पार्ट. ओके, चलो. नाउ, defining your terms clearly strengthens your argument. This statement is grammatically correct but ambiguous. If I write this statement, इस स्टेटमेंट को दो अलग तरीके से इंटरप्रेट किया जा सकता है. I can speak this statement in a particular way and I can give it two different meanings. For example, I could say, defining your terms clearly strengthens your argument. Or I could say, defining your terms clearly strengthens your argument. My pause makes a huge difference to the meaning. If I go with defining your terms clearly strengthens your argument, right? Defining your terms, अपने टर्म को डिफाइन करो तो ऑब्वियसली आपका आर्ग्यूमेंट स्ट्रांग हो जाएगा. So clearly becomes obviously in that sense. But if I say defining your terms clearly strengthens your argument, अगर अपने टर्म्स को आप एकदम क्लैरिटी के साथ डिफाइन करते हो तो आपका आर्ग्यूमेंट स्ट्रांग होता है. So the way I put an emphasis, if I clearly के पहले रुकूंगा, defining your terms clearly strengthens your argument versus defining your terms clearly strengthens your argument, right? But I can convey my meaning while speaking, but while writing I cannot express which of these two meanings I want to convey. So I simply change it. Either I say defining your terms will clearly strengthen our argument, or I can say a clear definition of your terms strengthens your argument, or I can also say defining your terms clearly will strengthen your argument. So ये will को डाल के I can specify. So defining your terms clearly will strengthen your argument, or defining your terms will clearly strengthen your argument. So that will, the insertion of a simple word makes a big difference to the meaning. Right? Or clearly defining your terms strengthens your argument. Yeah, that's the second one. Everybody got it? Grammatically, it is right, but it is ambiguous. I do not know which meaning is to be conveyed. So that clarity is absolutely necessary. See, अरे कंफ्यूजन नहीं है. See, Mac, I'll use slightly different words. Do I mean to say, okay, agar to term ko, you define your terms, obviously it is going to strengthen your argument. Versus, you give a clear definition of your terms, and this will strengthen your argument. Right? Did you understand the two different ways this can be interpreted? Defining your terms clearly strengthens your argument. So clearly, I'm using in terms of obviously. और क्लैरिटी के साथ टर्म को डिफाइन करो. डिफाइनिंग योर टर्म्स क्लियरली strengthens your argument. So if I put a will in between, defining your terms will clearly strengthen your argument. Defining your terms clearly will strengthen your argument. That will can also help as a pause and give you the two different meanings. Right? Got that, Arya? Alright. Now, one. So these are all modifier related things. Now, there is something called parallelism. And parallelism again is one of the very, very commonly asked type of error based questions. So, supposing I say, Megha likes cooking, jogging, and to read. Right? Now, parallelism का मतलब होता है when multiple things in the same sense are used, they all must follow the same structure. If I use multiple verbs in a sentence, all the verbs must be defined in the same tense. So here, my verbs are cooking. I mean, obviously, likes is also a verb, but cooking, jogging, and to read are all verbs. So they must all follow the same tense and usually the majority rule. So cooking, jogging, and reading, they all have to be in the same ing form. Megha likes cooking, jogging, and reading. If I want to convert it into the read wala format, then I must say Megha likes to cook, to jog, and to read. So either I can say Megha likes cooking, jogging, and reading, or I can say Megha likes to cook, to jog, and to read. ये ing वाला फॉर्म मैं यूज करूंगा बिकॉज एक ही वर्ड को चेंज करना पड़ रहा है. मिनिमल चेंजेस इज द बेस्ट ऑप्शन. गॉट दिस एग्जांपल? Okay. So if I say the French, the Italians, Spaniards, and Portuguese, again, again, excuse me, there is a problem with the usage of parallelism, right? फ्रेंच, इटालियन, स्पेनियंस, पोर्चुगीज, पहले दो के अंदर ध है, बाकी दो के पीछे नहीं है, राइट? एंड when we are referring to the names of people belonging to a country, we put the in front of the word. If I do not put the, then it is the language. French is the language. The French is the people of France. And obviously, Spaniards and Portuguese are people of Spain and Portugal. So I'm not referring to languages, I'm referring to people. So then they should become the French, the Italians, the Spaniards, and the Portuguese. सबके आगे ध लगना चाहिए. Now, so now I'm going to give you examples where there must be parallelism, but it is not. So you have to tell me the correct way to write the sentence. The incorrect sentences: a time not for words but action. What should be the correction here? Onishka, yes. If we say Megha likes to cook, jog, and read, no. Pragya, saying Megha likes to cook, jog, and read is grammatically incorrect because jog, read are not the proper usage of the verbs. To jog and to read, right? Because splitting the infinitive. And people, when speaking, we often skip the usage of to. But saying to cook, jog, and read is grammatically incorrect. She likes jog. It's like she likes to cook, right? So she likes to jog, yeah, she likes jog. She likes to jog. She likes to cook. She likes to read. right? To jog is the action. For example, what's the difference between cook and to cook? To cook is the verb. Cook can be a person, the main cook, right? So does she like the cook or does she like the action of cooking? So for a verb, you need the to before it. So you cannot say jog and read. You have to say to cook, to jog, and to read. Correct. Okay. Now, a time not for words. Words and action. They are the two things. Words के आगे for है, action के आगे भी होना चाहिए. So a time not for words but for action. Parallelism. Right? Now, either you must grant his request or incur his ill will. Either you must grant his request or incur his ill will. Manishka, okay. That is a longer change. You can actually do a shorter change here. Remove must. Either you grant his request. No. No, must को remove करने से actually I'm not removing the error. Right? So understand. Here either and or are the two words which are together. So then either and or का structure भी same होना चाहिए. So either you must do this or you must do this. Either के बाद you है तो और के बाद भी you होना चाहिए. Right? So either you must grant his request or you must incur his will. So instead of adding you must after or, I can slightly shift the words and not add anything. So either को you must के बाद डाल दो. So you must either grant his request or incur his ill will. So without adding anything, I'm simply shifting the position of a word and I'm making it parallel. Either do this or do that. तो you must को repeat करने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती. So it becomes you must either grant his request or incur his ill will. Minimal change. शिखा, you आप में मिसिंग है. You cannot say either you must grant his request or must. Either you must grant his request or you must incur his will. That you is necessary. So instead of adding it too many times, simply either को shift कर दो. So this entire structure becomes parallel. Okay. My income is smaller than my wife. Shalja, no, the error is not with the word smaller. Smaller chalega. Smaller, lesser, more or less the same. Error is something bigger than that. Munishka, nah. You're still maintaining the same error by doing that. So this is a very, very simple error. Yeah, the error is you're comparing two wrong things. Income cannot be compared with wife. Income is money, wife is a person, right? So my income is smaller than the income of my wife, or my income is smaller than my wife's income, or my income is smaller than my wife's. That's it. You cannot say my income is smaller than my wife, क्योंकि वाइफ इंसान इनकम पैसा है, पैसा और इंसान कंपेयर नहीं किया जा सकता. आपकी इनकम को आप अपने वाइफ के इनकम के साथ कंपेयर कर सकते हो. सो इट शुड बी माय इनकम इज स्मॉलर देन माय वाइफ्स और माय इनकम इज स्मॉलर देन माय वाइफ्स इनकम. You can omit the word income, but it has to be an apostrophe s there. Got that? All right. Now I'm going to give examples. I'm going to display a sentence split into four portions on the screen. If there is an error in one of the portions, you have to point out the error and tell me how to correct it. In some example, it is possible there is no error, in which case you can tell me E, no error. But if there is an error in A, B, C, or D, then you'll have to point out what the error is, or rather how to correct that error. So first, he deserted the path of honor in order to satisfy his ambition and then went down his doom very quickly. It's not enough to tell me where the error is, you must also tell me what the correction is. Shikha, you got the part right, but the error, that's not a correction. So remember, in English grammar, the error is not necessarily only that of verbs. It is also important to use the correct prepositions and conjunctions, right? And especially idioms and phrases जो होते हैं उसमें specific usage of words is necessary. So verbs, prepositions, conjunctions, they all must match. एरर सब सही बता रहे, डी में एरर है, पक्का डी में एरर है, बट प्रज्ञा गॉट इट, एरर डी में है. लेट मेनी ऑफ देम सिंग वेंट डाउन टू हिज डूम, वेंट टू हिज डूम नहीं. When you are saying doom, you don't go down to your doom, you meet your doom. So error is obviously in D, but it should be he deserted the path of honor in order to satisfy his ambition and then met his doom very quickly. Right? You don't go down to your doom, you meet your doom. So met his doom very quickly. You have got an entire book of idioms and phrases. It's very important to not only know the meanings of those idioms and phrases, but also learn the construction, exactly which words are used along with which words. So, doom ke say you don't go down to your doom, you meet your doom. Got that? And you don't meet with your doom, you meet your doom. So, met with his doom, met his doom. Okay. Nitigna's nephew, who lives in Ahmedabad, is eager to travel to Delhi to have a glimpse of the capital. Nitigna's nephew, Nitigna's nephew, who lives in Ahmedabad, is eager to travel to Delhi to have a glimpse of the capital. Preshta and Shelja, yes. Anushka, no. Pragya, yes. The glimpse, तुम किसी की एक झलक देखने जाते हो या किसी की वो झलक देखने जाते हो? The glimpse means very specific. You don't say the glimpse, you say a glimpse. किसी की झलक, एक झलक. A glimpse. So a glimpse is right. Living in, no, Anushka. Nitigna's nephew living in Ahmedabad. No, who lives in Ahmedabad is perfectly fine. Nitigna's nephew who lives in Ahmedabad. So who lives in Ahmedabad is a qualifier for the nephew. So Nitigna's nephew who lives in Ahmedabad is eager to travel to Delhi to have a glimpse of the capital. Technically is perfectly fine. There is absolutely no error in this. There is absolutely no error. Grammatically, this sentence is perfect the way it is. इसमें कोई change करने की जरूरत नहीं है. Next one. The institute imparts training in the French. Shikha, yes. Munishka, yes. Anushka, yes. Manan, yes. Shalja, is there a possibility of having punctuation mistakes? Normally, in the instructions, they will tell you ignore any error of punctuation because printing mistake में कभी-कभी full stop कमा हो जाता है, right? Unless specified, usually we ignore errors of punctuation. Instruction में भी दिया होता है कि ignore any error of punctuation. Unless of course it's a huge punctuation mistake. जैसे apostrophe वाला जो punctuation होता है, that is the only punctuation which normally they play with. वरना कमा एंड फुल स्टॉप वाला पंक्चुएशन के साथ इतना ध्यान नहीं देते. Okay. So obviously you're talking about giving training in the French language. So language के आगे ध नहीं लगता. The French means people of France. But here they're talking about कि they teach in French language. So the institute imparts training in French. ध निकाल दो. चल जा. Did you get it? Yep. Okay. His father promised to give him anything what he wants if he passes in the examination. Munishka, yes. Shikha. Arya, if he pass in the examination, beta, that is the worst. That is sort of the worst thing. Naisha, this is already being recorded and it will be available to you on the app. What he wants, if he wants, हाँ तो wants के साथ passes ही आएगा ना. Passes is the present tense. Wants is also the present tense. Okay. So many of you got it. Many of you saying remove what? But what को तो remove करना ही है. But the best way to do it is his father promised to give him anything that he wants if he passes in the examination. You don't put what, you put that there. His father promised to give him anything he wants if he passes. नहीं, that लगता है वहां पे. So technically, what should be replaced by that. His father promised to give him anything he wants is not enough. That is required in between. Everybody got it? All right. Being a very fast worker, he is always liking by all his colleagues and superiors too. Ah, most people got this. Correct. Easy है ये वो. Being a very fast worker, he is always liked by all his colleagues and superiors too. Like Tiger. Anushka, remove very or fastest. Being a very fast worker. Why is a very fast worker wrong? Technically, it's not wrong. You can't say he's very fast. सी वेरी फास्ट एंड फास्टर फास्टेस्ट में बहुत फर्क है. फास्टर तब यूज होगा जब किसी के साथ कंपेयर करना है. फास्टेस्ट भी तब यूज होगा जब आपको कहना है वो सबसे फास्ट है. सबसे फास्ट होना और बहुत फास्ट होना दो अलग चीजें हैं. आई मे बी वेरी फास्ट बट नॉट द फास्टेस्ट पर्सन इन द ग्रुप. सो वेरी फास्ट इज जस्ट बहुत फास्ट है. सबसे fast, so fastest and very fast are not the same. Do you get that? Okay, try this one. I shall be able to complete the work in stipulated time, provided you do not disturb me. But if you read out this sentence, automatically आपको पता चल जाएगा कहाँ पे change करना है. Yep. If you just carefully read it, automatically your brain will tell you where the change needs to be made. In fact, when I was speaking out the sentence, I had to be careful that I don't speak it out right. Right? I shall be able to complete the work in stipulated time, provided you do not disturb me. Almost everybody got this one. Okay. Our neighbors had repeated the same illogical sequence of activities if we had not brought the facts to their notice. Dairya, Preshta, Manishka, Kamaksh. Right, Pragya. Our neighbors had repeated the same illogical sequence of activities as if we had not brought the. Ooh, that's an interesting thing. That's an interesting. That's an interesting way of changing it. But technically, I mean, can I say our neighbors had repeated the same as if we had not brought the facts to their notice? That's an interesting way of putting it. Not what I would have expected. Technically, I would have to accept that also as an answer. उन्होंने ऐसी गलती की जैसे कि हमने उनको बताया ही नहीं. Interesting way of changing it. Yeah, but there is another way, technically. What you said is also right. Meaning is different, but the construction is right. Okay. So, technically what I mean है, अगर हमने ये नहीं किया होता तो उन्होंने कर दिया होता. That's the sense we are looking for. So, our neighbors would have repeated the same illogical sequence of activities if we had not brought the facts to their notice. That's a more obvious correction. Although I like the way you did it. Okay. Now we are happy to know that the project completed strictly as per the schedule. This is straightforward. We are happy to know that the project completed strictly as per the schedule. Shalja, slight change. You got the part right. Slight change. Preshta, yes. Kamaksh, yes. Manishka, yes. Pragya, I need the correction as well. Shikha, yes. Dev, कहाँ पे? So we are happy to know that the project was completed strictly as per the schedule. Right? I think most of you got this one. We are happy to know that the project was completed strictly as per the schedule. Okay. He was too irritated to concentrate on his work for a long time. He was too irritated to concentrate on his work for a long time. Pragya, nope. Arya, what's the correction you suggest? Shalja, Shikha, yes. Manishka, yes. Arya says remove two. He was irritated to concentrate. He was irritated to concentrate. Grammatically, it becomes wrong. He was irritated to concentrate. Something's missing. So basically, what they're saying is he was so irritated that he could not concentrate on his work. And so की जगह पे to लगा सकते हैं. So technically saying that he was too irritated to concentrate on his work for a long time is grammatically acceptable. It's perfect. There's no need to change anything. This sentence does not contain any error in it. Got it? Okay. The environment in which companies operating today is undergoing frenetic changes. Arya. Yes. 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 Correct. All correct so far. Most of you did get this one right. बढ़िया छे. The environment in which companies are operating today is undergoing frenetic changes. Correct. Okay. Now, I've underlined a portion. There is an error in it. You simply have to tell me from the given options which is the correct alternative. We have no right to take a claim to the sun. Is it to stake a claim, to make a claim, to demand a claim, or no correction required? Keep it as it is. We have no right to take a claim to the sun. Hello, you are getting this wrong. In fact, hardly anybody got it right. Hardly anybody got it right. Alicia, yes. एक या दो लोगों को. Most people think that you make a claim or you demand a claim, or something is you take a claim. No, what you do is you stake a claim. This comes from the old practice in America when people used to go out and they used to totally unexplored lands. So whenever they saw land and then what they wanted to say that this land belongs to me, so they would take a piece of wood and they would hammer it into the ground. That piece of wood was called a stake, right? And that was called staking a claim. Hammering that piece of wood to show your authority over that land was called staking a claim because they literally used to put a stake inside the ground to make a claim. So we have no right to stake a claim to the sun. Stake literally means, like I explained, puri kahani, stake a stake is a piece of wood. And in olden times, the people used to drive a piece of wood into the land to say that the land belonged to them. So, from the practice of staking, to stake a claim means to establish your ownership. It comes from this particular practice. Stake literally means a piece of wood. So, it's an idiom. But that, okay. She behaved as though she was superior and looked down on the others. She behaved as though she was superior and looked down on the others. Hmm. Most of you are getting it. Shikha, nope. Dev, nope. Dhairya, Arya, Pragya, nope. This is one of those funny rules in English. Now, one of the most common rules in English is called subject verb agreement, where it says that if the subject is singular, the verb also must be singular, and if the subject is plural, then the verb must be plural. But in certain exceptions, like the one here, although the subject, the pronoun she, is singular, the verb was is not accepted. So we say she behaved as though she were superior and looked down on the others. We don't say she was superior. She behaved as though she were superior. All right. We had to move slowly and carefully to our seats for avoiding stepping in their toes. First of all, it should be stepping on their toes. But I just need to correct the underlined part. We had to move slowly and carefully to our seats for avoiding stepping on their toes. Okay. So in this, I think a lot of you got that. We had to move slowly and carefully to our seats in order to avoid stepping on their toes. So that to avoid because of me. In order to avoid stepping on their toes. So A, most of you got it right. Okay. He depends greatly on his brother. He depends greatly on his brother. हाँ 50-50 है आधों को आ रहा है आधों को नहीं आ रहा है सो ही डिपेंड ग्रेटली नहीं ही शुड ग्रेटली डिपेंड वो तो मतलब चेंज हो गया ही हैज बीन डिपेंड सी बी एंड सी डाल के सेंटेंस सही होगा लेकिन करने की जरूरत तब है जब दिया हुआ सेंटेंस गलत हो आई नीड द चेंजेस ओनली इफ द गिवन सेंटेंस इज रॉन्ग एंड टेक्निकली स्पीकिंग देयर इज नो एरर इन द गिवन सेंटेंस he depends greatly on his brother means he already depends. Why should I make it he should greatly depend as if he we are telling him to do or has been depending past tense? No, he depends greatly on his brother. The sentence by itself is correct. You don't need any correction. If you put B or C, you actually end up changing the meaning of the given sentence. Right? Okay. He was one of the wisest man that ever lived. This is a classic one. This is one of the most common errors. This is one of the most common errors. And the way I'm saying it also contains the clue. One of the जब होता है तो the noun following it cannot be singular. One out of many. You cannot say one of the common error. You have to say one of the common errors, plural. So one of the wisest man is singular. You cannot have a singular. So one of the wisest men, right? So he was one of the wisest men that ever lived. So one of this followed by a superlative and then a plural noun. Now, why we think that people belonging to few castes are superior to others? Technically, they should be why do we think that people belonging to few castes are superior to others? हाँ तो few castes को change करना है so obviously countable uncountable right so why do we think that people belonging to some castes are superior to others? Here we are not counting them we are just referring to some. The few is thoda but kuch we want to say kuch not thoda. So some castes. No, few and Shalja, like I explained, few is when you are counting it. and some literally is कुछ लोग कहते हैं या थोड़े लोग कहते हैं. Few means not many, but some just means some. Do you get the difference what I'm trying to convey? So few is when you're counting it. Some is just a reference. कुछ लोग कहते हैं और कम लोग कहते हैं. That's the difference. Okay. Rahul has very good command on Urdu. Rahul has very good command on Urdu. कमांड ऑन से बेटर तो कमांड ऑफ होगा. बेस्ट तो होता ओवर. राहुल हैज वेरी गुड कमांड ओवर उर्दू, बट क्योंकि वो ऑप्शन नहीं है तो ऑन से तो बेटर है ऑफ. राहुल हैज वेरी गुड कमांड ऑफ उर्दू. कमांड ओवर होता तो बेस्ट होता, बट ओवर की जगह ऑफ इज अ बेटर ऑप्शन. एट तो नहीं ही होगा. यू डोंट हैव कमांड एट समथिंग. किसी पे कमांड होता है, किसी के ऊपर कमांड होता है. सो यू हैव कमांड ऑफ और यू हैव कमांड ओवर समथिंग. A laborer's way of life can be contrasted with that of the farmer. A laborer's way of life can be contrasted with that of the farmer. Contrasted to, compare with. You also compare and contrast with something. A lot of people are telling me contrasted to. No, but it contrasted against. Technically speaking, you can keep it to. A laborer's way of life can be contrasted with that of the farmer. Chalega. You don't need to change it. Compare with something, contrast with something. This form will give you information that you need. This form will give you information that you need. अब information जो आपको चाहिए वो specific है. So you definitely need a specific article here. So this form will give you the information that you need. This form will give you the information that you need because you're talking about specific information. Correct. The police are trying to solve this case. मुझे लगा. Most people are giving me the wrong answer. The police is trying to solve this case is not correct because police is not singular. The policeman is trying to solve this case, but police is a plural form and it's not a collective noun. The police force is trying to solve this case. Collective noun के लिए भी singular, but police by itself is not singular. Police is called plural. So the police are trying to solve this case is correct. You don't need any change here. The police are trying to solve this case. That's it. We are done with the examples. You have a book of English grammar, and there are a lot and lot of exercises of sentence correction in that. I hope you are going through that, right? This type of examples not very common in CLAT, but can be expected in IELT and very very common in other examinations. But it's always good to know the basics, and those who are giving IELT, it's always good to revise your basic figures of speech of poetry, those alliteration, metonymy, and all that, because those questions have frequently made an appearance and very, very easy to solve if you know the basics, right? So, why unnecessarily lose 2 or 3 marks simply because you did not remember your figures of speech? So, that's it. With that, we come to an end. There's a doubt I'm solving that. Other than that, we are done. We catch up again tomorrow. Okay, the question is there are certain words used in plural. For example, scissors. In that case, how should we correct it? Okay. So for example, we never say scissors. We say pair of scissors, right? Pair of trousers, pair of glasses. A pair of a pair is if a pair becomes singular. But the word police itself is plural. Police means a collect a many policemen. So the police are. The policeman is. The police force is. But the police are. You get that? Okay. Chalo.